Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, on this lovely English summer day. Most of you will be aware of the mining disaster that took place at Talke Pits Colliery on the 13th of December 1866, where 91 men and boys were killed, and 7 years later in the same mine where another 18 perished. Added to the Bunker Hill collapse suffered another explosion of damp fire which claimed the lives of another 43 men and boys. These are the disasters that shock you, but the hundreds more lost their lives at the Jamage, Talke Pits and Bunker Hill collieries. And the plaque here today is in memory of those people lost in such tragic circumstances. Some families lost more than one generation in a single accident, and many boys as young as 12, 13 and 14 were recorded as victims. The local community must have torn apart with grief, and it's right that we have some of the relatives and them here with us today. I'd like to unveil this plaque in memory of the lost souls.
It's brilliant to see so many. I'd call you distinguished, most of you, because the speakers on the subject of mining, some of the people looking around the room, you're the most knowledgeable people in Staffordshire regarding mining. So I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I do have some thank yous as well. Kidsgrove Town Council, who I've sent along our Deputy Mayor, Kevin Johnson. Thanks for the unveiling, Kevin. That's very kind of you for coming along there today and providing us with some food. Kidsgrove Town Council was the people who we first approached many years ago with the view to on Talke Hill we're going to have a memorial wheel. The costing run away with it. We ended up that we were going to Affinity. We had plans to go at Affinity for 12 months. They then pulled the plug on that one. So we've ended up at Talke Pits Village Hall, like I say, with the backing of the Town Council, going back to Sue Davies, our liaise through Sylvie Diamond, local councillor, and the clerk, Sue Davies, taken over then by Hannah Moore, who then worked with us to provide us with support to finally get the plaque up here today. So big thanks to the Town Council. Massive thanks also to the rest of the committee, the Mining Memorial Committee. Every one of them is here today. Phil Austin, Les Mason, I'll go around the room and I see you all. Andy Dean, who had the original idea, who was the first man who was going to have the idea. Ray Slater, John Higgins, if he's still here. Yeah, John. Brilliant, thanks. And of course, Jim Morgan, another driving force behind it. So thanks to that committee as well. Other thank yous are to the Village Hall itself for giving us permission to put the plaque outside. Thank you to them and thanks for the use of the hall today. Even if it wasn't quite, as I say, we should have been in here for 1, but 2 o'clock. We're all a bit wet, but just wanted to thank them as well. Other people actually, I know they're not here today, but they did set up the GoFundMe which paid for the planning application and also the plans to be drawn up. It was actually Amanda Cartwright, Jonathan Gullis, their money was used to pay for that. Anyway, I would just like to hand you over today to Jim Morgan, an old friend. Well, don't take that in the wrong way, not old in that sense, but long-standing, I should have said, a long-standing friend, Jim Morgan. If he doesn't know it about mining, it's not worth knowing. And so Jim's just going to give us a little talk today about mining, not just in general, about the 3 Bunkers Hill, Jamage and Talke Hill Colliery. I lost 2 relatives in the Talke Hill Colliery. I bought a book that I did many years ago, if anybody would like a quick look through. It is indexed in name, just to see if anybody... It started locally, but grew into North Staffordshire, so if they're in that book, might give you a bit more information on it, any relative. So, hand you over to my friend Jim.
Mr Deputy Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Mark has mentioned the book that is behind me. Also behind me are 4 black and white photographs that have been donated by Chatterley Whitfield Friends. Mark, as well as my late friend John Lumsden, have catalogued the names of over 5,000 men, boys, women and children who died in mining accidents in North Staffordshire. I was at the meeting many moons ago. I thought it was 2014. Somebody said it was 2011, so I won't argue with that. But here we are in 2023 at the unveiling of this plaque to the miners of the 3 collieries. And what continues to amaze me in North Staffordshire is that even 80 years after the closure of the last deep mine, which was Jamage, there is the will and passion to commemorate those men who worked in an industry that was the economic backbone of North Staffordshire. Coal mining in North Staffordshire, it is the richest coal field anywhere in Great Britain, containing every type and quality of coal found anywhere in Great Britain apart from anthracite and lignite. It is heavily faulted, prone to outbursts of gas and water, and when they shut the pumps off at Victoria Colliery in 1986, that one pit alone was pumping 350 million gallons of water a year. And it was also very steeply inclined, and the average gradient was 1 in 4. But out towards Kidsgrove and Talke, the seams reared up almost on end. They were 9 degrees from vertical, and in a book published in 1884, there is a magnificent sketch showing how the rearers seam was worked. So we're here today to commemorate Bunkers Hill, Talke the Hill, and Jamage, and I'm going to give a brief overview, a different perspective relating to each one of all 3, not necessarily in the same order. So we start with Bunkers Hill Colliery. It was named after the first battle of the American Civil War, and on the 30th of April 1875, 43 men died. James Yearsley, a collier, aged 27, left a wife, Mary, and 3 sons, aged 3, 4, and 4 months. Within a week, she was chucked out of the colliery-owned house because it was needed for another miner, and weeks later, she received a letter from the disaster fund saying that provided funds remained, provided she remained chaste and didn't get married, she would receive the princely sum of 4 shillings per week for life, while each of her 3 boys would receive 2 shillings until the age of 13. Mary was fortunate in the fact that she had relatives in Cheshire and did not go into the workhouse like so many people did at that time. It doesn't have a happy ending because a few years later, at the age of 34, Mary died, leaving 3 motherless sons. Times, ladies and gentlemen, were hard. There was no such thing as the welfare state. We now move on to Jamage Colliery. There were 3 brief accidents that I want to refer to. On the 24th of December 1874, Christmas Eve, 17 men died. The 5th of January 1876, 5. And on the 25th of November 1911, 6. And what is interesting about the 1911 accident is that 3 weeks after the accident, a group of men, some 600 yards from the shaft, found 3 horses alive. They were instantly brought to the surface along with 15 dead. And that tells you something of the miners of North Staffordshire. They didn't want to leave the dead horses there, so they brought them out. Today, Jamage doesn't exist. It's bisected by the D road, and if you take the D road from Talke roundabout towards the M6, as the road begins to turn round to the right, you will notice on the north side of the eastbound carriageway a grassed embankment. When the D road went through, and there is a photograph behind me showing that, the dirt tips of Jamage Colliery were still there, and in periods of very heavy rainfall they actually cascaded and closed both carriageways. The National Coal Board had to come along and re-landscape the tip, which is now a grassed area. Jamage was on a railway line between Chatterley Junction and Jamage Junction on the Audley line, just to the west of the branch that went up to Talke the Hill. The North Staffordshire Railway, ever anxious to increase revenue, decided that they would sever the line to the west of the branch to Talke the Hill, meaning that all coal from Jamage, instead of coming the short way down to the Chatterley Valley, had to go all the way through Halmer End, Bignell End, Audley, Leaseat, Silverdale and Newcastle, which gave increased revenue for the North Staffordshire Railway. Now, Jamage closed in 1941, but to the west was Rookery Colliery, which didn't have a washery. So until the closure of Rookery in 1947, coal from Rookery was transported by narrow gauge railway to Jamage, where it was washed and then sent back and then loaded onto railway lines and taken out on the route I've just said. We now move on to Talke the Hill, and as already been mentioned, the accident happened on the 13th of December 1866, in which 91 men died. The shockwave apparently was felt a quarter of a mile away, and if you go into the parish church in Talke, you will see that there are stained glass windows commemorating the disaster. It left 11 widows aged 32 to 59, 12 dependent adults from 59 to 76, and 42 dependent children aged 11 to 14, and like in so many instances, a disaster fund was set up. The inquiry didn't really come to any conclusion. There was no possible evidence, but it appeared that some of the miners had keys which enabled them to unlock the lamps and smoke, which of course was totally and utterly against all regulations. 2 officials were found guilty of culpable negligence, but the jury returned a verdict of accidental death, which they did in so many instances at the time. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we have no coal mines left open in North Staffordshire, but we do of course have the fabulous Apedale Heritage Centre, which has got a magnificent museum and does underground trips on a Saturday and Sunday. And also I am a founder member of the Friends of Chatterley Whitfield, which is keeping alive the colliery, which is a scheduled ancient monument and has got a range of buildings totally derelict from 1881 down to the 1960s. Mining is in my blood. I enjoyed 32 years working for the National Coal Board, and then I went up to Chatterley Whitfield, where I was the last curator, and I spent the last 4 years of a most wonderful working life amongst the miners of North Staffordshire, and they were the finest breed of men I've ever been privileged to know. Thank you.
It's a long time coming because, of course, you have memorials in places like Halmer End, Silverdale, Leaseat, and when you consider that this was a massive mining disaster in 1866, 91 men and boys killed, not to mention the individual fatalities over the course of the years, it's really important that this has happened today. It's taken a long time to organise. You know, kudos to all the people involved in the organisation, the planning and the jumping through hoops, but this is really important for Talke today.
After 12 years, we've finally got there. There is now a memorial to the mining disasters in Talke.
It's just a proud day. It's a proud day for the area, for all those, you know, that lost their lives, their families and that. we were the only area within Staffordshire really that didn't have anything to commemorate all those that lost their lives, and we all stuck together. We come through obstacle after obstacle, COVID, this, that and the other, but it's a proud day, at least at last now, everybody is remembered.